Yeah, but it's just not in the spring. So I would look at it. Oh, February. They've already done it. Yeah, go get him. Wait around. Okay. Hi, how are you? Yes. Back seat. Oh, okay. I guess she informed me when I saw her earlier. Okay. So we're going to tell her all the certificates. But I think that's actually we're accepting the resolution.
Bine. Welcome, everyone. We're going to begin by welcoming all of our speakers and guests on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the California State University Stanislaus Assyrian Genocide Remembrance. My name is Carmen Morad, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight as we remember, reflect, and promise never to forget. I would like to begin by recognizing our dignitaries, elected officials who have joined us here tonight. Your Grace, Bishop Morava Royal, Assyrian Church of the East Diocese of California, President Ellen Jun, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Kimberly Gear, Greer, Honorable Mayor Gary Soisit, City of Turlock, Supervisor Vito Chiesa of the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors, Marion Cannon, CEO of the Stanislaus Community Foundation, Council members Jenny Knoyer of City of Modesto, Council member Bill Zalaki, City of Modesto, Council member Tony Madrigal, City of Modesto, Mr. Dale Butler, Stanislaus County Equal Rights Commission founder, and Mr. Ruben Imperial of the Stanislaus County CEO's office, and Mr. John Lazar, former mayor of City of Turlock. I would also like to recognize representation from the following branches of government in our local area. Dana Ferreira from Congressman Jeff Denham's office, Brandy Laforti from Assemblymember Heath Flora's office and Cooper Condit, Evelyn Stardman from Supervisor Kristen Olson's office, Joanne Lamas from Senator Anthony Canella's office. We are also blessed with representation in our community leaders from the Assyrian community here today. From the Assyrian American Civic Club of Turlock, Sam David, President. The Assyrian Cultural Center of Bidnahrin, President William Dadishu, Sargon Dadishu, Dr. Sargon Dadishu as well. Assyrian American Association of Modesto, Howell, President. Assyrian Athletic Association of Modesto, Robert Nanishan, President. Assyrian Club of Orhei, Karim Alton, President. Assyrian National Council of Stanislaus, Hubert Valadio, President. Central California Assyrian Student Youth Association, President Anthony Narsi. Assyrian Democratic Movement, President over California, Fred Isaac. Assyrian Democratic Movement presiding over Stanislaus, Tanya Hermes. Assyrian Aid Society, Central Valley, Selgon Alkurji. Assyrian Universal Alliance, Belus Nisan Americas Chapter, Inc. And of course, Mr. Lazar Piro, Board of Directors from UC Merced. I would also like to thank Ms. Adria Kamino from the Assyrian Art Institute, representing Nora Bet Yosef Lacey, for the beautiful job they've done at the art gallery. Representing our members of the clergy and the Assyrian churches in our area are His Grace Bishop Marawa Royal, Assyrian Church of the East, Court Bishop Ushana Canon of the Assyrian Church of the East, Margi Verges, Janard Lazar, Assyrian Church of the East, Marzaya, Reverend Ephraim, Assyrian Church of the East, Mar Adey, Edward Isabek, St. John's Presbyterian, Assyrian Presbyterian Church, Alicia Agassi, New Hope Pentecostal Church of Blessed Hope, Edmond Sarkisian, Assyrian Evangelical Church, and George Shabazz, Assyrian Evangelical Church. Please help me welcome our president. Through her leadership, she's becoming the catalyst for change. California State University Stanislaus President, Dr. Ellen Jun.
Thank you, Carmen. Can you hear me? Hello? Is that better? Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, welcome to our beautiful campus. I wanted to say two things. First off, as by way of introduction, is I've been in the CSU system for 31 years, and I've visited 22 of the 23 campuses, and I believe this is the most beautiful campus that we have in the entire system. And I hope you will know that I hope this is not the first time nor the last time that you come to our campus to visit, because as you will see from tonight's comments by our newest faculty member, Dr. Stacy Farentholt, we will start to launch a new program in modern Assyrian studies. So we'll say a little bit more about that in addition. But I wanted to tell you that we do have a gorgeous campus, and I want you to think of this as your cultural educational resource, if not for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, and others in your family. I also wanted to let you a little bit of housekeeping. We have notified the HVAC folks, and so they have turned on the air conditioning, so it should be starting to cool down shortly, and hopefully we'll be much more comfortable in the remaining time tonight. As I said, our campus is very, very fortunate because we live in such a rich, fertile area of Central California, not just rich and fertile in terms of the agricultural resources and products that we produce, not just for the state, but for the entire nation and if not the world, but we also have a great richness of diversity in the people who live and reside right in our neighborhoods here in the Central Valley. And so as an institution and as a president of an educational university, it was very important to me to make sure that we reflect that level of educational clarity and academic rigor as we establish new programs of focus. And so one example of this is we were launching a new Modern Assyrian Studies focus. And that was made possible by the extremely keen vision of a key donor, Dumarina and Francis Sargis. And Dumarina is down here with her sister, so I want to pay special acknowledgement to that keen vision that in the modern Assyrian world, there's a great deal of research, scholarship, and history that must be mined, understood, and communicated so that everyone who has Assyrian historic roots can understand better what has occurred in the past. And tonight is just one start of that effort, because you will be introduced to our newest, brand new faculty member, Dr. Stacy Fahrenholt, who will speak with you tonight. So, tonight we gather to share in a very sobering remembrance of Assyrian martyrs and victims of genocide, and in recognition of the resilience of the Assyrian diaspora, including significant and well-established community here in our region served by the university. So I'm especially delighted, as I said, to introduce you, to give you the opportunity to meet our newest professor of modern Middle Eastern history, who is here this evening to speak about the Modern Assyrian History Project that she will be overseeing as the university works to build out a rigorous academic area of study devoted to a scholarly analysis of modern Assyrian history. So Stacy, would you wave your hand? There she is. And she will be offering additional talks and events in the new year. So again, we ask you to come back and learn more about the modern Assyrian history. So this evening's program, however, is a separate effort on our part to engage with our regional Assyrian community, and through the focus of this evening's program, even though it will cover difficult and unsettling topics, the magnitude of these events deserve our sober attention on this very solemn day. It is our hope that this evening brings strength to our Assyrian friends gathered here and afar, and our thoughts are with the martyrs and victims of all genocides. Thank you.
Thank you, President John. We are blessed tonight to have for the invocation His Grace the Bishop, Marava Royal of the Assyrian Church of the East. Please help me welcome His Grace.
Good evening to you, fellow Assyrians and friends, as we gather this evening to commemorate the martyrs of our Assyrian nation of all centuries. Let us now bow our head and ask for God's blessing upon our gathering. I will pray in the Assyrian tongue. Shemid Baba Bruna Uruchat Qucha al-Almin. Nachemlun Yamarun Walahan al-Anidan wal Sahdan Bakhnanuch, Maklinun min Yaminuch, Malwishnun Shucha Shapira Yu Malkutuch, وخطلنا مكنشت شبخانوخ كين وزديقه تمامانت رزاق يورشلم الله تمارت موتا وتخيان بابا برونا وروخت قدشال العالمين على من يخلون سعادة.
Thank you, Your Grace. We will now hear words of spoken poetry from a renowned poet, an Assyrian poet. He is the writer of the Assyrian national anthem. Please help me welcome Rabbi Yosef Bit Yosef.
Good evening. I will recite my poem in Assyrian language. I will honor with this poem the Assyrian martyrs' souls. For those that they want to have it in translation in English, if you have some papers in your hand, the poem's paper, there's cross from each stanza, the in English translation. Transliterating was translated by Anne Margaret Margerion, and poetry format and meter was translated by Belus and Susan Neeson. پرمي لأمتا آتوريتا جودارت إسري بشورايت أكمت ستفا بكانن وقرتت إتفا أرمي كل بنيتا إيوت خد تلجا خبيتا أيوة بيد جو نوخنيكا بوريا من جاوريكا خويوينتو باتت شمية حاضور دموت همية جو أرمي كل أكارا كختا قولينا كوارا مليوة ببريوتا بريك من بتانا وزروتا كحبيبة هدرو جاني السوبرا ملي ماني خلوطي بلاطم باجاني وبجو ستفة الجاني لتفعلون خبر جاري ورخيد بكتب إيساري دجمن مهصريم جيباني الخقل الآوى الكرماني هجلب بريك من خلطة نشر بريشي لقطلطة بسلعب المنديت اتفا اوت جمو وقستفا جور الصيريل ستوني كم اينت بنات وبنوني دي بكري الانظلم يسري كم خربت سكنت دري يمم قدالك سيخالون براتو لوشتو شو الخالون خونم كم ماطل خاتو بسيبك طيل الإيداتو برخاطة وأغشغيشة دمية جيجانة بيشة كل أرخاتي الصيرة بشلم دجمن يخسيرة زارا برملون بسكنتا يمو شنيلة مسكنتا بخيلم دمو مشتويو بمو جليجو مبلويو خكمة جوربلون تأرقي وبكس أوروني برقي قومت خيه باصيلون من جانجارتا خلصيلون خبياي بلفشتت بيتا بلطلون الأراتريتا جابت تلج قاريرا درخكي مموتها ماريرا وأني كت إيوة السيفة لمرزة تانورة تيفة لمصيلون بلطين بيتا سبرون هلد آتموتا زرا لاتي لم لبو دشافق للساوة مغبو بنوش وجوبيتا بايش ظلم يماري رجارش جوطينا غدانا ننتا كت بخا أفقا زبطنتا نابكتو بيت شلشتا لامون تيلا بجرشتا رخط لها يارتا ميا بلطالم طينة خيا هل ضرا إبراتونتا إينا خنقتا سوتونتا يما كت إيوة بطنتا ميقرد زارقا يقرنتا مبيون دليوة مصيثا بيد رخطا الناشو مطيثا خزيوة دمندراناني سكبتا الباوت إيلاني لوشتو من الله شلختا كيسو برزيتا وكسختا انكيفيت خطيبالون مربو بسكنتا بريطالون لقدالو چرمخي مايو بيه تندل الزايو بخيت شور مجيباني كت بيش دلاخ زماني قلناتها بقياتها برندر بخامياتها بقلب ناشفة من بيلي ينم أقلة وإيد شبيلي وببغربية بهلجة اتفن بيلي الأوتلجة تبلك الشلدة يمة بجبوج التلجة والذمة بجراب هالدبنة وخاصة خزيو من بزو مياسة شخنا قطلانة دبريلي موتها جو أم دريلي خشمن بلون شطيخة بأكلة دربني قريخة جرجوشو باغري جية سنيك الناطب تدمية وميتا جوش مخريبة خايا من تشيتشكو تيبة عنيد او جنخة برقلون بجنجارة خينة بقلون كد بكواتش بيوماني كل يوم يابا موتاني وكما الصبي والسوري يمي بخي وباچوري لم صايد مرقالون بياشا قصيثة شو قالون بإمي بناتي شو الخاية قلدو تلجا خبياية إيدي بجد الصيرة دوي كيبا أخي خسيرة ين مبوديد مشلمي إن لال موتة تسلمي عني دل موتة برشلون شوبلن الدنيا القورة خشلون اتفا بلجلون بايارتا اتفا تقضيلون لديارتا دمشقي المغبات ليكي ين الآنيت إيوا سنيكي جو ديارتي برابط بقلون برخموت هكاتيخ بقلون آنيد من ناشي بريشي تليك وأوارا بيشي شو دانا خاقلاما لمس يبل تخاما لماري روتا تقومتا اخت پشتيلا تمومتا شل كومتا تشميالا جوريشن سلمنالا بوش مارر تلاويتا من دايت ببومت نيتا جو شل او اغدانا بريسا وخابو قدانا من طور ابدين هل ارمي لمشي خاية لازم برمي شل خاناشت لا مشلم قلت وديت لا تسلم لشوكم باش خاية ان او ايلم شي خاية او تلجة جويلة بدمة يقرو ويل خب إما قدع تمشي خيتا بيت توديتو شليخيتا مشخودد مع خوتا كمية خيد بريخوتا غزيلا هد خلاويلة يوم الخور وعي بنيلة كمت الروسيا رقلة ضرب باكوبة بقلة من دور راقة أرباسر هل دور راقة مانسر من أمتن ختلي تايا زودة لا بش لقايا أم بيشان الدوراقة هجمراقة ليوخ براقة عويتم باسين
Basim and Robbie, thank you for those beautiful words. We will now hear from the Yako brothers, Georgis and Edward.
The howling winds disturbing the core, a wretched force we've never known before. Nor rain, nor snow, nor thunder's fiery blast, that works a wind to be strong, so fast. Yet someone know the reasons this occurs. Let some ascribe a bloody line that blurs. A war is waged across the planet wide, and no one's safe. There's no place to hide. But truth be told, we've documents on hand to set things straight for all to understand. Now milk the cow 100 years and some, and matters not who's playing deaf and dumb. In 95, Bill Clinton spelled it out, 1,000 times as pawns, to leave no doubt. Disclaimers are the hardest blows of all, and so we watch our confreres as they fall. What is the word genocide? To many of us, we imagine the Holocaust of the Jewish people. However, to the Assyrian nation, our genocide was 30 years prior to the Jewish Holocaust, with the annihilation of 300,000 Assyrians, or 3/4 of our nation.
Where did the word genocide come from? In 1944, a Polish Jewish lawyer named Raphael Lemkin used a compound word between Greek and Latin. From the Greeks, he took genos, meaning a certain race or people. In addition, he used the Latin suffix "cide," meaning the act of killing. When put together, the act of killing a certain race or people. In Assyrian, you would call it qtal amma, which literally translates the killing of people.
If there was no word to describe the genocide pre-Raphael Lemkin, what was used? There was a select few phrases used. For example, Winston Churchill, after the invasion of the Soviet Union by the Germans, called the event crimes without a name. Another example that might have been used was massacre. However, these phrases or these words do not paint the picture as we hear the word genocide today.
Finally, what were some outcomes of the genocide that has happened to the Assyrian nation? Loss of our ancestral homelands, where many scholars accredit our empire as the cradle of civilization. We lost the possibility of the future of those men, women, and children who were killed by the Ottoman Turkish government. Think of the contribution these people could have made towards society. Although these atrocities happened 100 years ago, we as the descendants of those persecuted still feel the pain today. I have concluded that if it were not for the resiliency of our forefathers, we would have forfeited our culture. Just as my brother read in the poem earlier by Richard Doirin, war was waged, but they had nowhere to hide. Thank you.
Thank you, Givergiz and Edward. We will now watch a brief video called An Assyrian Exodus by Miss Rosie Malik Yonan.
اقدام خالق رسول آغازم این خالق دور اقدام کلید زدود فوق جلد ورثته قد مشبلان شنت بشبه جنفة عيناتا أقلاكم قليبه وجليته ثم السيد من يخدم مشيانا يمات الكيسات الزيرة مروق الزرد عطيك زمروا ليلاني ليلة أبيال السوري تشمي برية كيكة أو الخان أخدم إلى خسارة أنف أطورتها فيشا تطبط الروح دروخة إنه الإسلام يونان بلالباتي سوريد الليل أرض الشاشة ليلي بلاك شخصين إيضا مادلا أخنا قد الرعخ والبرخ الموقع تزرايق وبرزرد أعطيب عاتب إيدت أعطيب أعطب تابي بندرو ملي ليلي من دليل الخشيان لا منشيت لا منشيت أنا بتكلم بندرو ملي ليلي من الخشيان ليه منشيت لا ليه منشيت
This moving and poignant video is also available in English on the website of Ms. Rosie Malik-Yonan and on YouTube. I am pleased to introduce our next speaker. She is an activist, a humanitarian, and an Assyrian advocate. Please help me welcome Ms. Mona Malik.
Shalom Aleichem. Don't worry, mine is in English. The slides, please. Great, thank you. So I'm really excited to be here tonight, to be among the distinguished guests here, and I'm also happy to contribute to this discussion from a different perspective. Since this is about genocide and not about humanitarian work and the work of Assyrian Aid, I am basing this presentation on my experiences, my travels to Nineveh, to our homeland, and to the genocide work that I had the opportunity to do in New York and in DC. So I've narrowed it down to that work rather than humanitarian work. Events like this are very important to remember, as we are doing today in this forum and in many places around the world. I'm not sure if you are familiar with all the sort of social media type of programs that are going on, and all the way from Nineveh to Chicago to here. There have been events, there have been forums, marches, speeches, plays. This time last year, on this day, I was in Nineveh, and I participated with my brothers and sisters, and how we started the day was we visited the actual graves of the martyrs, which is in the Nineveh area around Duhok, and then we ended our visit at the site of Semele. which is 20 minutes outside of Duhok. And I just want to mention that on that spot, the regional government does not allow us to memorialize it. So it's another place that I hope Sabri Atman will be able to do some work at, because we do have a lot to do, and to commemorate, to remember our brothers and sisters who risked their lives for us. And of course, we must never forget. So what I'd like to do is to present tonight, it's a perspective that reflects on 3 key issues of genocide. I know everybody's going to be talking about what genocide is and what happened and dates and things like that, so I don't want to reiterate the same thing. So my 3 key issues are manifestations of an impending genocide. What does that mean? Do we have indicators? Is there like a litmus test or a gauge or a barometer that alerts us to an impending genocide? So we'll talk about that. Coping with trauma inherited from the survivors of genocide. Recent scientific study indicates that descendants of survivors of genocide inherit the trauma in their DNA. So why is that important to acknowledge? Why should we bring awareness to that? And then the third final topic, hopefully ending on a positive note, to identify the resistance taking place now. And it's taking place now like no other time in our history. And I just want to say that with the utmost respect and a testament to the pillars that our martyrs built for us to stand on today and believe in ourselves. So I know these 3 topics are big, and you can make a whole semester class out of each one of them. So in 10 minutes, I'll try to summarize them without diluting the gravity of each one of them. So the first topic, manifestations of an impending genocide. First, we have to understand that genocide is never a spontaneous thing that happens. It's not a spontaneous event, including the most recent genocide by ISIS. The sole trigger wasn't an impulsive overnight invasion by a religious fanatic group seeking to annihilate anyone not adhering to their version of religion. I know on the surface, you may have that perception, and I'm not insinuating that religious persecution wasn't a factor, but it wasn't the sole motivation, nor was it the major factor. The conditions that allow for genocide to occur are long, slow processes of persecution, of human rights violations, and a combination of triggering factors that enable an atrocity like genocide to occur. So triggering factors, which I'll explain further down, when they're left unresolved, when they're left unprosecuted and ignored, become dangerous breeding grounds for genocide to take place. So 2, please. I'd like to quote Knights of Columbus President Carl Anderson really quick. He stated this in multiple events and venues. He said, quote, "Religious hatred, discrimination, and second-class citizenship too often constitute a way of life that is antecedent to genocide." The key factor here is the second-class citizenship. That's the combination of triggers that I was talking about. It sets the stage. It's a precursor to all atrocities, if you look throughout history. So what does that mean in real life? What does that mean on the ground in Nineveh, in our homeland in northern Iraq? Second-class citizenship comes in many forms. Some are obvious and some are not. So just some recent examples. And I'm not talking about ancient history examples. I'm talking about last week, last month, last year, and the last a couple of decades. 3. illegal land grabs and denied access from entering to Erbil to protest. This happened last year in April, specifically on April 13th. I know that date. The people of Nala were protesting because the regional government, the Kurdish regional government, was allowing for homes to be built on Assyrian homes. And Assyrians were not allowed to enter Erbil to protest peacefully, and this was all planned. Voter fraud. Not a year, but the last time there was elections, the Kurdish regional government again came to Assyrian villages, some of them, not all of them, and picked up empty boxes and brought them back filled. Intimidation, physical and psychological threats, vandalism, without any criminal charges against the perpetrators. Destruction of heritage sites. One before that, please. No, the next one. I think we're missing something here. Yeah, keep going. Okay, vandals. So right here, before we go on, this is just comparing it to in the 1930s, before the Holocaust happened, before their genocide happens, the same thing was going on with the Jews. Their homes were, or their businesses were being vandalized as well. The picture just seems to repeat itself. Instead of never again, it seems to be again and again. Destruction of heritage sites. And erasing all elements of indigeneity. And I'm not just talking about the sites, the irreparable, the incredibly just awful, I don't know what word I can use to mean more than awful, destruction of Numrud and places that we cannot really reverse the process. But it's also the quest to erase our heritage in less obvious ways. One of them that I can just comes to mind is that the KRG government is trying to change the name of Erbil. Erbil is a 7,000-year-old city with the same name. Erbil means Arbailu, it means four gods. There is no reason to change its name other than to erase its history and erase the indigeneity of Assyrians in that area. Another form of second-class citizenship is using people from our own community to control the masses. And an example from actually last week, 2 mayors were removed from their positions. They were democratically elected mayors, one in Al-Qush and one in Tel Kep. And they were replaced with Assyrians, yes, but these Assyrians are loyal to the KRG government, and they work at the pleasure of the KRG government. So they are not there to work for the people of those towns. So imagine if you were removed mayor and somebody else was placed that was not elected. So, and finally, the most nefarious of all is the deliberate disarming and abandoning of our people to face persecution by ISIS and to allow them to carry out the final phase of elimination. So just go to like 2, 3 of them. So how does discrimination and second-class citizenship lead to genocide? How did these examples establish the breeding grounds for a genocide? These kids are sleeping. I mean, they're not, okay, just so you know, it's not, they just ran out of space in the church, and it's warm out, and they're sleeping. So I don't mean to show that there are, that the kids are dead. I don't even want to say the word. How does it establish that it's breeding grounds for genocide? So they constitute a process. It's a slow undercurrent of exploitation to engender vulnerability, powerlessness, dependence, hopelessness, and to instill fear. Once you have a minority community capitulate to a despotic, tyrannical power, they become vulnerable to all sorts of catastrophes and repeats itself over and over again. So, as you can see, of course there are indicators and warning signs of an impending genocide. But we have to recognize that, and we have to be aware that they are in fact the alarm bells. Throughout history, we as a global community, unfortunately, have multiple genocides to analyze and compare. There are even dedicated departments within institutions like the United Nations that only deal with, and their title is UN Office on Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect. In 2014, the office published a very slick brochure titled Framework of Analysis for Atrocity Crimes, a Tool for Prevention. Ironic that this information was published on the same year that ISIS invaded and committed their atrocities and eventually their genocide. So as colonization of our lands has been a common occurrence, with each surge of colonization, we sustain more losses, more land losses, more human losses, and more tragedies. So that leads me to the next part, which is the inherited drama, it is drama too, but it's trauma of genocide from our surviving ancestors through our DNA. So don't worry, I'm not going to get into the scientific part of it because I'm not even informed enough to talk about that, and it would bore everybody just to sleep. But you can Google it, and there's a lot of information on it. This information has been around, I'd say, the past 3 to 4 years. So you'll find things like, the chemical reactions in people like that, the cortisol levels, and PTSD, and sort of the same thing that condition that military people go through when they come back from war. But they found that this kind of condition can be passed down through DNA as well. The point is that this information most definitely pertains to us. Assyrians have endured multiple massacres and genocides. I have a 35-page document from 1829 till 1919 listing every single one of them. If you're interested, I can email it to you. I believe that the essence of the study pertains to us, and maybe the reason why most of us in diaspora, specifically in diaspora, we don't react with a sense of urgency when an atrocity like ISIS happens, because we've carried these genes of hopelessness and defeatist attitude, the cynical outlook toward our own capabilities, right? I mean, I recognize that in my own self. When this tragedy happened in 2014, and I remember the night I was looking at the Facebook posts and everything about it and just going crazy. When it happened, my first thought was, well, this will unite us to finally stand up and with the support of the international community, because we are the indigenous people of Mesopotamia and the cradle of civilization, and as a bonus, we are a Christian community originating from the roots of Christianity, and we speak the language of Jesus. There's no way that the Western world will let us become endangered. Well, I was wrong, right? But that realization didn't come without multiple treks to the UN, in both Geneva and New York, in DC government offices, EU forums, even meeting with the Office of the Genocide of Prevention, like I showed you, in 2015, to no avail. All that effort and all those expenses to learn that no one will come to our rescue. This model of nationalism doesn't work, and it hasn't worked for over 100 years. We keep throwing ourselves at the mercy of others. How much longer are we going to keep doing that and repeating the same process and hope that the result will be different? Never again, like I said, is becoming again and again. Have you guys had a chance to see this movie, The Promise? It's really a great example of what I'm talking about when no one will come to your rescue, right? There is, now this movie has obviously, fictional characters, but it's based on true historical facts. So one part of it, that's the major part of the movie, and what I just want to reiterate, there's a great example of self-reliance, self-determination, saving themselves. There's 4,000 Armenians towards the end where they end up on this mountain called Musa Dagh. You can look that up, it's true, it happened. So 4,000 Armenian civilians were sent by the Ottomans into the desert to die. Well, they decided they're not going to do that, and they went somewhere else toward the Mediterranean Sea, the coast. And for 53 days, with very poor ammunition, so there's 4,000 of them, maybe there was 200 pieces of really poor ammunition, they defended themselves. They decided they can do it, and they defended themselves. And when their ammo and their food was finally, it was almost finished, they went down the backside of the mountain on the coast, and they were rescued by a passing French Navy. But that French Navy ship would never have anybody to save unless they stood there and saved themselves for 53 days. So that's what I'm talking about. Self-determination and self-reliance. So that brings me now to the positive part of the talk. There's a change. There is a change and a direction away from victimhood and the inherited trauma in our DNA. It's a struggle, but it's our only chance. Obviously, I'm focusing this, and I am referring to the Assyrian community here. But if you think about any minority group that's persecuted, this model applies. So it's a way of looking inward to find our own strength and our will to survive and thrive. Obviously, I'm focusing on the Assyrian community here when I'm saying these things. So starting with the most recent demonstration in Al-Qush, they are standing up. In Al-Qush against the removal of their mayor. People of Al-Qush are standing up against the regional powers. Support them, thank them, be proud of them. Let them know that you hear them and that you support them here. Demonstrations are organized in diaspora as well, all over. Join them. There is an organization called Assyrian Confederation of Europe, which was formed last year to be the voice of 500,000 Assyrians in Europe, called ACE. There is, in 2014, when ISIS came in and we were abandoned, disarmed first, and then abandoned by the regional government, the NPU was formed, Nineveh Plain Protection Units, and they were formed by Assyrians, for Assyrians, not only by Assyrians, but Assyrians from that specific area. Support them. MPDF, which took a year to actually establish, which is Nineveh Plain Defense Fund. It's established here in the US with the State Department. It's a nonprofit organization, and you can donate through NPDF for the NPU. The Assyrian Aid Society of America. It's a humanitarian organization. We not only now that there, this genocide happened, all the refugees came out, and they needed help. Now they need to go back home. Now their homes need to be restored and rebuilt, and to have a sustainable future. Stay engaged, be informed, participate in supporting self-reliance. Find your inspiration. There's so many ways to do that. Within this context, I was inspired by a movement toward Assyrian global governance. It's a focus on self-determination. It's still taking shape, and most of the Assyrian federations have joined in, and most of the associations around the world are joining in it as well, and I believe that they are planning the first meeting in Europe this October. So don't settle for second-class citizenship in return for a false sense of security. Just a small example, and I know I'm taking a little bit longer than planned. When I was at the State Department last year, I was informed that a civil society representative from our own community sat at the same conference table and told the State Department representative that, quote, well, I'll paraphrase, although we will be treated as second-class citizens by the Kurds, we would rather be under their rule because they promise us security. As you can imagine, I was shocked, I was floored, I didn't even have words beyond anything I can remember. So just imagine how frightened this person that said these words might have been to actually state them to the State Department, to say that it's okay, we'll be second-class citizens. I mean, just imagine that if an abused woman with black and blue marks all over, abused by her husband, came to a policeman for help, and then she said, well, it didn't hurt as much this time, just take me back to him, it's okay. The bruises will go away, it's okay. I mean, and then the cop actually takes her back to her husband. I mean, it's that kind of a thing, that it just has to be rejected. Second-class citizenship leads to genocide just like it did in 2014. Have an open mind. Don't walk around with blinders hoping that others are helping and your voice doesn't matter. Encourage and support higher education. Knowledge and educated minds are our best weapon. And don't assume that your voice will not make a difference. I promise, if you get involved, you'll feel very good about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mona. Our next speaker, Dr. Stacy Farenthold, is a historian of the Middle East and Middle Eastern migrations, with research specialization on modern Syria and Lebanon, migration, displacement, and the First World War and the Ottoman Empire. She received her PhD from Northeastern University in 2014 and is now assistant professor of history at California State University, Stanislaus. She is also the current director of the Modern Assyrian Heritage Project. She has served as a visiting scholar at the Center of Middle East Studies at UC Berkeley and taught most recently at Fresno State. It's a pleasure and an honor to introduce to you Dr. Stacy Farenthold.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carmen. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Stacy Farenthold, and I'm going to lose that. Thank you. And I wanted to speak to you tonight about a new project that we're just, we've been working with for a couple of years, but we're just about to expand in a very large way here at Cal State Stanislaus. I am the director of a project. It's called the Francis Sargas Modern Assyrian Heritage Collection, or the Modern Assyrian Heritage Project. And I think it's well suited for this event, and thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of such an illustrious team of community builders, and I'm hoping that I can do my part to help build into the community that exists between Stanislaus.
Speak closer to the microphone.
Okay. Between Stanislaus State, sorry, I'm kind of tall. Between Stanislaus State and its Assyrian community. This is your campus, and I'm hoping to invite more community between the Assyrian community and Stanislaus State. So this event tonight is about the importance of memory, memorial, and remembrance regards the genocide that occurred against the Assyrians a century ago and up to today. Part of what makes these acts of violence a genocide was the enormous violence perpetrated against the bodies and souls of the Assyrians, and beginning with World War But genocide also reverberates through the forced forgetting and the erasure of cultures and histories, and that's the sort of issue that I want to address. This erasure of culture is achieved through the destruction of cultural heritage sites, through the forced removal of populations, through the physical dismantlement of historical sites, but also through the selective forgetting of histories and the forced forgetting of histories and languages. There is also a process of historical erasure. This is a process of historical erasure that regards the Assyrian community must be confronted, and it's with this idea in mind that I propose that the act of history as a craft, as an art, as a science, is the ultimate act of remembrance. It's remembrance through preservation. It's the remembrance through the compassion for people from our past and for a people whose past and present are tragically converging. In part because I'm a historian and I might have a historical bias, which I will never apologize for. I believe that there is power in recovering historical memory. Because Turlock is one of the largest Assyrian communities here in this United States, this city is an ideal place to do some of the critical work needed to preserve an Assyrian history and an Assyrian American history, which is compassionate, which is nuanced, and which reverses some of the violent erasures of the past century in order to honor the community and to preserve these documents, preserve these voices for the benefit of future generations of students, scholars, and Assyrians. The work of community preservation has, of course, been ongoing here in Turlock as long as there's been an Assyrian community in Turlock. Preservation and remembrance are part of why the organizers have put together this event today. As your campus, the College of Arts, Social Sciences, and Humanities at Stanislaus State has been working to honor this spirit of preservation. And it's in that vein that 2 years ago, the campus began to build a special library collection in Assyrian heritage. It's called the Modern Assyrian Heritage Collection. It sits on the second floor of our university library. Have many of us had a chance to go check it out yet? I'm new here on campus, I've gone to go take a look, and it's very interesting, and I would recommend all of you go take a look at the volumes collected there. It was established in 2015 with a generous donation by Francis and Damarina Sargas. The collection is currently 250 titles, as well as online resources, which all document Assyrian histories in the Middle East and its diasporas, from really focusing on AD 300 to the present, so modern in the sort of most broadly construed sense of the term. Already this collection is the largest of its kind on the West Coast and possibly in the United States. And Dean James Tuidio of Stanislaus State's College of Arts, Social Sciences, and Humanities has set forth a plan to grow the collection and enhance its visibility at a local, regional, and national level over the course of the next 5 years. The goal of this modern Assyrian heritage collection at the library is to provide a local repository for new research in Assyrian studies. It's not just a collection of old books that we just put, for the sake of having a collection of old books. It's an invitation for students and for scholars and for researchers and for Turlock to come into the library and write new histories, think up new histories. And work in Assyrian studies. Turlock is, of course, the very best place for this kind of work. Our own Assyrian community is well represented at the campus at Stanislaus State, and it is my hope that students interested in exploring their family history, their community history, or Assyrian history more broadly will approach me and be drawn into this campus project where we can work together to curate a nuanced and compassionate local history. In fact, there's already been some compelling work, I hear, coming out of the special collections in the past year or so. Graduate student Katie Jaycox, would you like to? History graduate student Katie Jaycox was the very first Sargas Fellow in the Modern Assyrian working with the Modern Assyrian Heritage Collection, and she spent a year working with these documents. for a paper project. So I'm trying to find my spot here. Together with special collections, with the staff at the library, and with this grant from the Sargas Fund, Ms. Jaycox worked through and transcribed 24 oral history interviews for a master's project in history. Her work charts a path for future student research in Assyrian history at both the undergraduate and graduate level work that we're hoping to continue for the next several years. Thanks to the Sargas family, the University Archives, and Special Collections, as well as Dean Tweedio, the collection will become a center for a more permanent project here on campus called the Modern Assyrian Heritage Project. And what I want to do now is sort of pivot a little bit and give you some ideas of some of the things that we're hoping to do in the next few years. First, we're hoping to build on this oral history collection. We're hoping to work with the transcriptions that Ms. Jaycox worked with recently. We're hoping to build on that oral history collection through doing more interviews in the Turlock community or in the broader Central California area amongst anyone who would like to share their story, to share their family story, to share with us anything you would like to share about this community with Stanislaus State students. We've already gotten the technology for this, and we want to eventually go into the community and collect your stories. This is social history. This is not a history of regimes. It's not a history of governments. It's not a history of states or empires. It's a history of people. It's a history of people and the communities that they build around them. And it's my hope that telling these stories and putting these stories together can do something not only for our students here at Stanislaus State and for the community, but might be able to address some of this inherited trauma that Ms. Malik brought up in the previous presentation. So we're hoping to collect, transcribe, and expand those family histories and those oral histories through locally sourced microhistories of the Assyrian American community. And I would invite anyone who would like to learn more or who would like to give me ideas or who is interested in participating to contact me at any time tonight, at some point in the future, whenever. We would also like, the project also has a mind to compile these stories to create an exhibit, either likely a digital exhibit, a website of some kind, an interactive affair on the Assyrian communities in this state of California, and to invite increasingly larger numbers of people to participate in the act of making and reclaiming Assyrian history. Not only students, but also activists, people from Turlock, people from across California, people from across the nation. This is open to anyone, and it's open to all, and it's supposed to be a sort of collaborative project. This is not, a sort of top-down affair, but a community affair. Third, we'd like to roll out a series of publications in both scholarly venues, which are sort of the more traditional spaces where I work, but also in more public settings, doing public engagement work through local media, and integrating people whose voices typically aren't recorded in historical narratives. And we'd like to share this data to the extent that we can, share this data, the data that we collect, to tell a compassionate Assyrian history within the larger American public sphere, the kind of compassionate history that forms a crucial part of remembrance, of resilience, and of community building. And in all of these things, finally, we will essentially grow the archive of the Sargas collection here at Stanislaus State. The collection will, in 5 years' time, be the largest such collection in the United States. It will contain books and documents, letters and diaries, recordings, and born digital items in several languages on Assyrian history from AD 300 to the present day. We will also collect, catalog, and preserve rare books and manuscripts, family papers, family narratives, photos, letters from both local and foreign sources. These records will be dutifully preserved here at Stanislaus State, and with the help of our talented librarians and staff in special collections, and they will be available to researchers according to the privacy settings set by the donors. To conclude, I'm new to Turlock. I moved here, I started here last month. I'm still getting to know Turlock. I am an historian. I am here to amplify this community. I'm here to amplify your stories. The stories, if you trust me with your stories, I will preserve them. I will keep them, and I will amplify them. I want to help capture, construct, and present a modern Assyrian history that is inclusive and which emphasizes the resilience of the Assyrian community, especially the Assyrian community here in California. So a final thank you to the Sargis family for the Modern Assyrian Heritage Fund, to the Stanislaus State College of Arts, Social Sciences, and Humanities, which together will fund a team of student researchers to begin this important work. Our team will actively be looking for ways to accomplish two related missions: to do our bit to bring modern Assyrian history to the American public, both locally and nationally, and to build our own archives to document the lives, livelihoods, and stories of Assyrians here in California and preserve them for future generations of students, scholars, and supporters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Stacy Farenthold. You have our guarantee that we will work with you as a community, and also you will experience our hospitality and our food as well as our history. At this time, I would like to invite Supervisor Video Keza and our Mayor, Gary Soisid, and our representatives from our elected officials to please come up here. We have some presentations to honor the Modern Assyrian Heritage Collection.
Not sure which one to grab because my vision is so good.
Would you like to use some?
Ta-da! Very nice. Well, this is, before I read something, I just want to tell you how sobering this is for me to be here, and I know I can echo the sentiments of the folks behind me. It's a remembrance, but really it's a reminder of what has happened, and I was talking with His Grace, talking about 102 years now. The genocide hasn't stopped. But this is a reminder for us here, because I know all of you have family still back in the old country. I too have family back in Italy, but they're safe every night, and we can't say that about everyone in the world. So it is a very stark reminder for myself, and it explains a lot why you are some of the most proud people I've ever met in my entire life as a generation, and I call a lot of you my friends. So with that, we do have a presentation, and I found some glasses. So is this one right here? Yep. Mayor Soiseth, who probably has better vision, is going to bring it up here. Okay.
You read it?
Oh, this is for
Francis.
Go right in. That's it. It's first this one.
Okay.
For Mr. Francis.
Yep. Okay, and I have certificates too. So this is a resolution, an assembly resolution, on behalf of Assembly Member Heath Flora from the 12th Assembly District, and it's commending Francis Sargis. Whereas Francis Sargis has contributed extensively to the people of the state of California through his many activities and his generous contributions towards promoting and celebrating Assyrian heritage. And as a tribute to his exemplary record of community service, he is deserving of special public commendation. And whereas a France native who came to Turlock, California in 1947 at the age of 14 with his mother and sister, Francis Sargis, served honorably in the United States Army, attended Modesto Junior College, and earned his bachelor's degree and teaching credential from the University of California at Berkeley. And whereas, after entering UC Hastings College of Law, Francis obtained his Juris Doctorate from the University of Southern California and his master's degree in law from Yale Law School. And for many years, he maintained a successful private law practice in Santa Barbara. And whereas a generous philanthropist, Francis established the Francis Sargis Modern Assyrian Heritage Fund at California State University, Stanislaus, a natural center of modern Assyrian research due to the large concentration of Assyrians in Stanislaus County. In 2015, for the purpose of purchasing books and other materials in order to enable a generation of learners to discover and, in turn, preserve modern Assyrian culture. And whereas, proving to be much more than a bookshelf collection, the Francis Sargis Modern Assyrian Heritage Fund has inspired CSU Stanislaus to pursue its efforts to create curricula, degree programs, and certificate programs to promote Assyrian studies, and establish the Sargis Modern History Research Award to recognize outstanding students studying Assyrian culture. And as of December 2016, the fund helped to acquire a total of 261 total titles, including 129 books on hand, 23 ebooks, 6 journals, and a number of back-ordered books and additional publications scheduled to be ordered. And whereas, throughout history, Californians have been blessed with the contributions of individuals who possess great public spirit, who in addition to their daily pursuit, have taken a keen interest in local affairs. And Francis Sargis has participated in numerous enterprises with evidence of lasting contributions to the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Assembly Member Heath Flora that Francis Sargis be extended deep appreciation for his dedication and contribution to the people of the state of California and to the Assyrian community, and conveyed best wishes for continued success in the future. This is dated the 7th day of August 2017, signed by the Honorable Heath Flora, 12th Assembly District. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. My name is Gary Soyseth. I'm the proud mayor of the city of Turlock. Just briefly, very excited to be here today to commemorate the Assyrian culture. Whenever I go around talking about Turlock, they know about the Assyrian culture. And one thing about it is that you all stop to remember. And you stop to remember and celebrate what's good in your culture, but also some of the trials and tribulations that you've had. And so thank you so much for letting me be here today. I'll leave you with this. I am half Portuguese and half Norwegian, but when people ask me, I also say I'm full Assyrian as well. So thank you so much.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here today on behalf of Congressman Jeff Denham. Today is a solemn day, and we stand in solidarity with our friends as they mourn the loss of family members and friends. It's important to recognize the Assyrian genocide so we can continue to fight intolerance today. We must work towards peace and condemn violence against those who are persecuted for their religion. The Congressman is honored to represent and work for thousands of Assyrians, and we're glad to see the Assyrian community strong and thriving here in the Central Valley. You contribute to the vibrant and colorful threads that make up the fabric of our neighborhood, schools, and churches. And on behalf of the Congressman, we'd like to present President Ellen Jen a certificate of special recognition in honoring her support and CSU Stanislaus support of the Assyrian Genocide Remembrance Commemoration and the Modern Assyrian Heritage Collection that is showcased here at CSU Stanislaus. Your acknowledgement of those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for the preservation of their cultural and ethnic identity is to be commended. Thank you for your support. And we're also proud to present certificates both to Francis Sargis and also Nora Lacey from the Assyrian Arts Institute for their support of tonight's event.
Hello, everyone, and on behalf of Senator Anthony Cannella, I would like to say thank you for having us here tonight. It feels like every day we face the toughest challenges of our lives, but on days like today, we remember that there are bigger things out there, and we remember what's truly important, which is our family and our friends and the love that we give them. And so after today's event, I hope we all walk out of this room with a little more love and a little more tolerance that we can put out in the world. We have a certificate of recognition and thanks to present to Dr. and President Ellen Jen, and thanks for the Assyrian Genocide Remembrance that takes place here at CSU Stanislaus.
Hello, I'm Brandy Laforte here on behalf of Assemblyman Heath Flora. I'm really choked up tonight. We go through our daily lives and we forget. And I'm happy to be a part of this remembrance here today and happy to be here with all of you. And I too have a certificate for California State Stanislaus and President Jen for the remembrance of the genocide. And one last thing, Vito read the resolution for Francis Sargas, but we also have a resolution for Nora Bet-Lacey that couldn't be here tonight. So thank you.
So, I didn't forget you. But I think CSU Stanislaus has made quite a statement by how they've invested in the community. And President Jun has not missed a beat as she has come to this community as one of us. So again, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and as chair this year, I have a resolution, not a resolution, I'm sorry. We extend expression of appreciation and gratefully acknowledge and commend President Ellen Jun for her support and recognition and commemoration of the Assyrian genocide remembrance at CSU Stanislaus. Appreciate all you do for the community.
I'm back. When Carmen tells you to do something, you do it. So she's asked me to read the resolution from Assemblyman Heath Flora for Nora Bet-Yusuf Lacey. Whereas Nora Bet-Yusuf Lacey, an accomplished scientist, business owner, and philanthropist, and the esteemed founder of the Nora Bet-Yusuf Foundation and the Assyrian Arts Institute, has contributed extensively to the people of the state of California through her many activities, and as a tribute to her exemplary record of community service, she is deserving of special public commendations. And whereas during her 20-year tenure as president and chief executive officer, Nora led Cell Markey from an initial $5,000 investment with 1 employee to a 100-employee company, which manufactured and sold Class 1 diagnostic products worldwide. And whereas having believed the most rewarding aspects of management during her tenure at Cell Markey to be visioning, team building, and customer relations, Nora started a mentorship program in early 2015 to encourage Assyrian entrepreneurs to follow their dreams with assistance in starting their own businesses with confidence. And in January 2016, the Nora Bet-Yusuf Foundation established the Assyrian Arts Institute, whose members recently donated an 8-foot-long bronze sculpture to be installed in Los Altos Lincoln Park. And whereas throughout history, Californians have been blessed with the contributions of individuals who possess great public spirit, who, in addition to their daily pursuits, have taken a keen interest in local affairs, and Nora Lacey has participated in numerous enterprises with evidence of lasting contributions to the entire community. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. We now come to our last and final speaker, to our keynote speaker, and we are honored to have him here today with us. Mr. Sabri Atman is the director and founder of the Assyrian Genocide Research Center, SAFO Center. He is also a historian and human rights activist. The SAFO Center is a research center that tries to raise awareness about the Assyrian genocide via research and education and educating non-Assyrians publicly. Mr. Atman believes that the best way to prevent genocide is to condemn the previous ones. Please help me welcome Mr. Sabri Atman.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction. It is a great honor for me to stand here today. His Grace, Mar Awa Ruel, and Reverend Fathers, faculty members, ladies and gentlemen, Shlama Lochun, Shlomo Alechu in my Western Assyrian dialect. I know many of you sitting here now have children. I would like to ask you a simple question. Imagine your son or your daughter was killed and the murderers still roaming free. How many of you could rest and forget what happened? I guess none of you, right? This is what happened in 1915 to Assyrians, Armenians, and Greeks. This is what happened to Assyrians in August 7, 1933, in Simele in Iraq. This is what happened in 2015 in Iraq and Syria. In 1915, they did not only kill one person, but they killed over 2 million people, and they are still free and denying what they did against our people. They want us to forget about it. Is it easy to forget about it? No. This is the reason we all are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me here tonight and for attending. I want to thank California Stanislaus State University and the other organizers of this event about the Assyrian genocide. I also would like to thank my dear friends, Ms. Carmen Murat and Mr. Sam David, the Assyrian Association of Turlock, who made this all possible. Today, I would like to give you a historical view of the Assyrian genocide. And the question and answer session, hopefully we can discuss about the reason why Turkey denies the crime they committed in 1915, and why we Assyrians still speak about a genocide that occurred 102 years ago, and about Simele massacres that occurred 84 years ago. But let's first begin defining what the genocide is again. The term genocide refers to the destruction of a group in whole or in a significant part, an ethnic, religious, racial, economical, political, or national one. Genocide is an abstract term to most of people. Scholars, historians, journalists, and or politicians sometimes reduce it to a set definition and statistic, and they don't put enough emphasis on the human parts, which is the pain. The loss of community and the long-term consequences for the victim groups. However, for survivors, Assyrians, Armenians, and Greeks, Jewish people, Tutsis in Rwanda, and many other victims groups, genocide has concrete meaning, and the pain is faced in daily living, even many years after the decimation of their people took place. One of the greatest burdens we share, whether Armenians, Assyrians, Greeks, or of any other people, is that the world does not recognize our laws, has no knowledge of it, or has forgotten about it. We talk about past genocides in order to prevent future genocides. For many of us, it's a moral obligation to ensure the past genocides are not forgotten. In addition to that, Assyrian genocide is an open wound because the perpetrators deny what they did against our people. We should keep in mind that in 1915, the perpetrators did not only kill our people, they did not only take our land, they did not only took our Diyarbakir, Hakkari, Urhoy, Urmia, Tur Abdin, and many other places from us. In 2015, they didn't only take Mosul and Khabur from us. They didn't only destroy our language, our national identity, but they also destroyed our future to be a nation in our ancient homeland. Despite all suffering, Jewish, Armenians, and Greeks have their own countries. But how about our Assyrians? How about us? We Assyrians have nothing left. They cause us to live all around the world, separated from each other. They cause us to go through a very painful assimilation process in diaspora. What I want to say is that many of our contemporary societal problems can be deduced from the genocide. As such, how can we forget about it? Again, past genocide had to be known and condemned in order to prevent future genocides. And this is precisely why the Assyrian genocide should be known and considered. Our Assyrian nation is one of the most ancient in the world. At present, we live throughout the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Turkey. And due to immigration, now also live in Europe, Russia, Australia, Canada, Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, and here in Turlock. We are people who have suffered from severe genocide persecution. The Assyrian genocide refers to the mass slaughter of the Assyrian population of the Ottoman Empire 1843, known as Badr Khan Bak massacres in Hakkari, 1894, 1896, and during the First World War, Simele massacre 1933, and to the ethnic cleansing 2015 in Iraq and Syria. However, genocide is not an issue that only concerns our people. Genocide is a crime against humanity, and it demands international recognition, condemnation, and action. The homogenization policy of the Ottomans was declared during the First World War with Germany's endorsement. An anti-Christian campaign was declared against all non-Muslims minorities within the Ottoman Empire. Over 2 million men, women, and children of Armenian, Assyrian, and Greek descent were murdered. The modern Turkish Republic was founded as a result of this genocide. Let's remember that prior to the First World War, the Christian population of Turkey was approximately 33%. Today, the total number of Christians in Turkey amounts to only 0.1% of the population. The next picture, please. In the first decade of the 20th century, the Assyrians were living largely in tribal groups in their ancestral homeland on the border of the Ottoman and Persian Empire in northwest Persia. In eastern Anatolia, Hakkari, Van, Botan, Tur Abdin, Diyarbakir, Mardin, Bitlis, and Siirt. And in present-day Iraq, in Persia, a population estimated 100,000 people, and the Caucasus, in Russia, inhabited more than 180 villages, mainly in the rich, fruitful province of Urmia. Those living within Ottoman Empire were most numerous in the province of Mosul, Bitlis, Siirt, Diyarbakir, Mardin, Shirnak, Van, and Tur Abdin. Here, the Western Assyrian from the Syriac Orthodox Church alone accounted for more than 250,000 people. In the Botan district, they were concentrated in several villages around the region. Botan contained some 100,000 Assyrians. The Van Vilayet stretched south from the city of Van to Ahmadiyya today in Iraq. The Sanjak of Van was home to more than 4,000 Assyrians spread between 2 and 16 surrounding villages. In Hakkari, the second sanjak of one vilayet, the 100,000 Assyrians were strongly concentrated in most of the 11 districts, representing more than a third of the population in Hakkari. These mountainous regions had been Assyrian territory long before the arrival of the Kurds and Turks. Next picture, please. Kochanos, a small town near Cholomerik, entirely populated by Assyrians, was the residence of the Patriarch Mar Binyamin Shimon. And this picture they are taken recently. Next picture, please. In a district that spread geographically from Barwar Bala in the south to Gawar in the north, where the Turkish authorities paid little attention to Hakkari's Assyrian population, who lived in a state of self-sufficient authority, deprived of schools and political representation. The 1915 massacres took place in historic Mesopotamia on a huge scale and happened in various phases, starting with Urmia, Salamas in northwestern Persia, passing through Hakkari in one province and spreading to Diyarbakir province, to the towns of Mardin, Bitlis, Siirt, Midyat, to the area from Turabdin to Bohtan, and to many other places, all situated in eastern Anatolia in the southeastern of today's Turkey. Next picture, please. However, the Assyrian tragedy began in September 1914, just before the outbreak of war. At the time, Turkish and Kurdish troops made an invasion into the plain of Urmia, a front region situated in Persia, and devastated several villages, murdering their inhabitants. These were the early warning signs of the massacre that were to follow some months later. Many tragic events and scenes of horror fill this story, during which hundreds of thousands of people were massacred or died of thirst, hunger, poverty, or illness on the road to exile or deportation. The objective was to drive them out of geographical zones considered too politically sensitive by Turkish nationalists, and by weakening and deporting them to get rid of them under the fake pretext that these non-Turks and non-Muslims were disloyal and infidels. Here you will see some pictures from Urmia. Please, can you go to next pictures? This is some pictures they are taken during the First World War in Urmia. Next picture, please. Next again, just you get sense how it looks like. Next picture, please. Next picture, please. Please go back. Thank you. The year of 1915, from January to November, was dreadful. Massacre took place in several fronts on the initiative of Turks and Kurds, under the Turkish Wali of Van, Cevdet Beg, brother-in-law of Enver Pasha and commander-in-chief on the Persian border. Abuses began to occur again at the beginning of January in non-Turkish territory within the frontier region of Urmia, Salamas in Persia, where dozens of villages were devastated. Göktepe, Ada, Gulpashan, Sopurgan, Khosrawa, Salmas, Haftvan, and many other villages. These attacks extended gradually to Turkish Hakkari before the flames spread to several more Turkish vilayets. One, for example, Diyarbakir, notably to towns of Mardin and the region of Turabdin, Kharput, with the town of Malatya, Bitlis, with the town of Seyit, the town of Urhoy, and Aleppo, to give just a few instances. These crimes, the author of the book, Shall This Nation Die? Writes Joseph Naim, dishonor the history of humanity. They were committed, claims Isaac Armalto, by enemies of humanity. These two authors came close in their thinking before the time to the notion of crimes against humanity, a concept developed much later. I want also to cite a few examples of contemporary documentation about the Assyrian genocide. First, the Blue Book, or the Treatment of Armenians in the Ottoman Empire, 1915-1916, written by James Brace and Arno Toynbee, around 100 pages, deals with the Assyrian genocide. It consists of testimony and eyewitness accounts, mostly from Urmia region of Turkish mass slaughter, organized rape, and ethnic cleansing. I quote, "It will remember that the Assyrians, better known in church history as the Nestorians or Syrian Christians, dwell on both sides of the Turco-Persian frontier." End of the quote. However, the book does not report much about what happened to Assyrian community in Diyarbakir, Hakkari, or Tur-Abdin. We have also Ambassador Morgenthau's story. Henry Morgenthau, he was the American ambassador to Turkey between 1913 and 1916. Morgenthau's story is one of the most compelling accounts of the Ottomans' involvement in World War I. Morgenthau bore witness to the Assyrian and Armenian genocide, and here is how he described it. I quote, "The Armenians are not only subject people in Turkey which have suffered from this policy of making Turkey exclusively the country of the Turks. The story which I have told about the Armenians, I could also tell with certain modifications about the Greeks and Assyrians. Indeed, the Greeks were the first victims of this nationalization idea." End of the quote. Father Joseph Naim, with his Shall This Nation Die?, the author of this work, an eyewitness of most of the horrible sins against Assyrians, described geography and religion of the Assyrian Christians who suffered during and after the Great World War 1915 to 1920. This book essentially brings together the accounts and testimonies of victims who miraculously escaped their tragic fate from Urhoy, Ser, Diyarbakir, Lija, Kharput, Erzurum, and many other places. Documentation in Arabic is equally important. Ishaq Armalto, a priest from Mardin, specialist in the Syriac manuscript of Deir al-Sheikh, Mount Liban, and another eyewitness to the tragedy, produced a work entitled in Arabic Al-Qassara fi Nakabahat al-Nasara, that means the calamities of the Christians. This is a vital, inaccessible source of testimonies and information on the massacre of 1915 and indeed 1894, 1896. The book is the first time published 1919 in Lebanon. It is in Arabic language. Hopefully, SAFO Center, Assyrian Genocide Research Center, will be able to translate it to English and publish it. During the 1915 massacres, more than 250,000 Assyrians lost their life on the whole of Turkish Persian territory at the hands of Turks, Kurdish irregulars, and other ethnic groups used to this end. Hundreds of villages left, a huge number of orphans, captured children, abandoned men, women, and girls kidnapped and sold, widows, refugees, those deported, and those forcibly converted to Islam. The Turks had also seized the Chaldean bishop Maradai Sher, who was murdered on June 17, 1915. They took with him a manuscript containing the third volume of this valuable Arabic language history of Chaldea and Assyria, which covered a period of the beginning of the 19th century. With this deadly policy, an attempt was made to destroy the cultural heritage of a people and to dispossess it of its identity. To tell you here, it was an Ottoman plan to exterminate Turkish Christians. The massacres, they were planned, they were systematically implemented. Generally speaking, first they came to arrest and imprisonment of well-known citizens, bishops, priests, and monks, intellectuals, in order to destroy the community leaders. Among the population were also victims of forced conversion to Islam, with many witnesses testing to this fact. Gorek de Kerboran, an Assyrian intellectual from village of Kerboran in Turabdin from the Syriac Orthodox Church, painted a sad picture in 1923 lecture at the Institut Catholique de Paris. I quote, "In each province, in each district, the Turkish authorities bring together all the Assyro-Chaldeans. They take all the men aged 13 to 55 or 60, send them into the interior, allegedly to turn them into soldiers, and they are never heard of again. Those are left are split into two groups. Girls and young women are sold at the market or looked up in harems." End of the quote. Joseph Naim also gave a lecture in Paris at the office of the Committee Les Franchis on May 13, 1919, reported, I quote, "There, like everywhere, the Turkey of the Committee of Union, Etihad Teraki, wanted to remove through violence those outsider elements that it could be not assimilate. It started with the disarming of the Assyrian soldiers who were at the front. They were turned into special labor battalions, put to work on the roads and in trenches. Many of these men took charge of disarming the civilian population. A certain number of weapons were demanded, and the inhabitants of villages who could not supply them were tortured, often in a dreadful way." End of the quote. But we have also many, many other survivors' stories. For example, the Bishop, His Grace Israel Odo, the Chaldean Bishop of Mardin, who wrote a report on the massacres not only in his diocese, but in those Diyarbakir, Siirt, and Siben. He provides a wealth of detail, especially on the Syriac Orthodox of Mardin and the surrounding area, lists the names of martyred priests and devotees, a chapter to the murderous commissioner Memduh from Diyarbakir. He stresses the particular horrors faced by women and points to the martyrdom of the Chaldean priest Hannah Shoah, the massacre at Siben, Midyat, and its surrounding, Eduardo, you can see it in the picture. And here the Assyrians 10,000 Assyrians from other villages. They were running, they were protecting themselves in this village. About 30,000 Turkish soldiers with the Kurdish tribes, they were fighting against them, but the Assyrians, they did resist for 2 months in this village, Ayinvardo. As Mona and many other, you can hear that genocide didn't stop 1915, didn't stop 1933. It is still continue in Turkey, in other places. And I am sure you have heard about that the Turkish state few weeks ago started to confiscate many Assyrian churches and monasteries. Can you please show some of these churches and monasteries? Next picture, please. This is St. Mor Gabriel Monastery in Turabdin. It's confiscated by Turkish state. Next picture, please. This is other monastery that we have in Turabdin. Next picture, please. This is also very beautiful monastery in Turabdin. It's confiscated by Turkish state 3 weeks ago. Next picture, please. This is other church that we have that confiscated by Turkish state. Next picture, please. Thank you. The testimony of William Shedd from the American mission in Urmia, which is very important. You can see here Dr. Shedd in the middle. He was an American priest in Urmia, indicating the attacks on Urmia by Kurds and Turks as early as October 1914. According to William Shedd, the Kurds invaded the plain, followed by Turkish troops, while Muslim villagers began looting, massacring, and raping. Those villages that failed to defend themselves died, alongside those that offered resistance. The missionary Dr. Robert Labar recounted that the wealthy village of Gulpashan was looted by Kurds. The men were killed and the women treated in the most barbaric manner. The Assyrians who stayed in Diliman, the chief town of Salamas, numbering about 800 people, were tortured and killed by the Turkish troops Cevdet Beg. Father E. Alan from Urmia testified that he had himself buried 160 Assyrians massacred by Turkish and Kurdish troops at Charbash, Gulpashan, and Ismail Askala. According to the American Medical Department in Urmia, hundreds of women, sometimes young girls, were raped in villages around Urmia. Dr. Yacob Sarkis, an Assyrian Methodist missionary from Persia who had escaped death by fleeing to Petrograd, sent a letter from that city published by Associated Press on February 12, 1916, which told of the terrors and atrocities perpetrated particularly in Sepurgan. Around 1,000 Assyrians were killed in the plain of Urmia after the Russian withdrawal by Kurds and Persians. In the space of 2 weeks, the homes of all 45,000 Assyrians and Armenians in the region were looted, with no a single village escaping. After the temporary but abrupt withdrawal of the Russian army from Persia, Azerbaijan on January 1st, 1915, the Turkish troops of Khalil Bey, commander of the Turkish army of the Caucasus with Cevdet Bey, Valley of Van, entered the region of Urmia and Salamas in the north of Persia. The Turkish forces, composed of 20,000 regular soldiers and 10,000 Kurds from the region of Upper Zab, remained there until the end of May of the same year, when they were driven out by Russian troops. During those 5 months, Turks and Kurds, Persians carried out heartless massacres and unprecedented atrocities against the Christian population. According to Johannes Lepsius, a German priest, Cevdet Bey was very happy and proud of himself after killing Assyrians and Armenians in Urmia and Salamas, who said, I quote, "We have made tabula rasa of the Armenians and Assyrians in Azerbaijan," end of the quote. Also, Dr. William Shedd describes how the Turkish forces operated during their occupation of Persian Urmia between the beginning of January on May 20, 1915. I quote, "The Turks collected large Kurdish forces from the Savcubulak region and from districts in eastern Turkey. These, together with smaller forces, moved through Urmia and Salamas against Khoy, joining Turkish forces from Van under Cevdet Bey. During the month of Turkish occupation, there was never a time of real safety for the Christians," end of the quote. Some churches were turned into mosques. In the district of Nazlu, villages were plundered and their inhabitants killed. Gulpashan, Sapurgan, and Göktepe suffered the same fate. And the Assyrian bishop of Gulpashan was killed. 56 villages in the region were systematically pillaged. The Assyrian Patriarchal Library in Kochanos and the Library of Anglican missionary William Henry Brown was ransacked, with hidden books discovered and destroyed. Basil Nikitin, the Russian consul in Urmia, wrote of one such vandalized church, I quote, "The famous church of Morzaya in Gilo, dating from the 4th century, was desecrated for the first time in its history," end of the quote. In Diyarbakir, the genocide was orchestrated by fanatically anti-Christian Governor Rashid Bey, who was member of the Committee of Union and Progress. In other words, Ittihad Teraki. In Diyarbakir, special death squads were set up to perpetrate the massacres, and Kurdish tribes participated in many places. One of the most active was the Rahman tribe located near Batman. And you may wonder how many people lost their life during the First World War, during the genocide 1915. The delegation to the post-war peace conference in Paris, 1919, and Lausanne in 23 presented statistics on the number of the victims during the genocide. In 1919, they claimed that 250,000 Assyrians had been massacred or killed. In 1923, they increased the figure to 275,000 people. In both cases, they stated the year numbers amounted to about half of the pre-war population and covered both Anatolia and Iranian victims. In conclusion, this is what happened to Assyrians, Armenians, Greeks during the First World War. They didn't just kill one child. They killed more than 2 million people, and still they are not punished. They are free, and they deny the crime they committed against our people. Now, back to my question. Will you forget about all these atrocities, or will you hold them accountable for the crime they have committed and ask for justice? And do not forget, denial is to be killed twice. Hawitum Basima Rabba. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Thank you.
Basima Rabba Sabri, thank you for those beautiful and poignant remarks. In closing, I'd like to invite the Dean of Library, Dr. Ron Rodriguez, who has played a pivotal role, an important role in making tonight in this program possible. Please help me welcome Dr. Ron Rodriguez.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the entire university, I thank you for coming today. It was an event that we will not forget and will resonate for many years, even perhaps decades. Before departing, I need to also express appreciation for all those who worked hard to put this event together. Dean Jim Twidio, College of the Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, along with Carmen Murad. Thank you. And it was great to work with these inspired individuals. Also from the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, Lori Phillips, Liz Toro Angel. From the University Library, Amy Egan and Emily Hake. Also, Edgar Alamo is the fellow up there in the booth controlling the lights and everything else. Thank you. Katie Jaycox, a grad student here at Stanislaus State. Thank you, Katie. I'd also like to thank once again all of our remarkable speakers here tonight. And now, as we're ready to leave, I'd like to request that everybody leave in the following order. The stage will exit first, and then we'll start row by row, the nearest row, and then proceed as we work towards the back. And that way we can all get out in an orderly fashion. So again, thank you all again for coming to Stanislaus State and visiting. Drive safely and have a good night. Thank you.